Hi, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Gram. I'm your host, Keisha Davis. This week, we've got another special guest joining us. Viola Levy is a beauty journalist and founder of copy-led branding agency Smart Beauty Creative. On today's episode, we'll be discussing why working with a brand copywriter is one of the smartest investments you can make when you launch your beauty biz. Viola, welcome. It's so lovely to finally catch up with you and be able to speak to you.
Hi, Keisha. Thank you so much for having me.
You are more than welcome. So today we're going to get into talking about tone of voice. We hear this quite often in marketing. So first of all, can you define what tone of voice actually means from a beauty brand perspective and why it's important in today's market?
Of course. Well, tone of voice is essential, especially in the age of for basically in the age of conversational commerce, as it's known in industry circles. So a lot of marketing is done online on social media, and that is primarily where a lot of your customers will, if you're a brand, will interact with you. So the way you talk to them is so
Mm,
crucial, and that's why tone of voice has to be, spot on. So it has to be consistent throughout every touch point because it's the persona that your brand is adopting when customers are engaging with you, be that on social media, be that through customer service, when they receive an email. That's how they're interacting. And I think now that more purchases are being made online than in stores, there isn't that counter assistant, there isn't that brand ambassador that people can interact with in real life.
yeah,
So how you speak to your customers online replaces that. And that's why it's so important because that's what's going to get you the sales. That's what's going to help you build your community. And that's what's going to help you stand out in a really
yeah,
crowded, saturated market. Like your voice has to cut through the din, as it were.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
if you don't have an original way of talking and a way that engages people and helps them connect with you, then it's going to be really difficult to stand out.
Yeah. It's almost like your brand's personality, right? And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, especially because beauty is so visual, I think people focus on the visuals, which is important as well, on the product
Mm.
itself. So yeah, talk us through how Smart Beauty Creative came about. What made you kind of identify this gap in the market and think, okay, this is what I'm going to specialize in?
Well, being having a background as a beauty journalist, as you know, for me, I noticed that a lot of the brands that stood out were the most successful weren't necessarily the ones with the best products. I mean, a lot of the time they were, but the ones that communicated their message in a really interesting and distinct way, those are the ones that we wrote about. Those are the ones that we got column inches and that people were talking about. And working with brands later on as a strategist, I realized how kind of refining a brand's tone of voice could really transform its ability to resonate with that target audience and
Yeah.
really stand out. A great example is Cult Beauty, the online beauty
Mm,
retailer. They were one of the first um, online only retailers to launch into the beauty space, and they really cornered that market with their
yeah.
tone of voice because I was chatting to their co-founder Alexa Inger, and she said that beauty is spoken about so seriously, or it had been up until that point, and they wanted to talk about it as if they were just a really knowledgeable best friend that
Yeah.
were chatting about, oh, what do you recommend? Well, we love this because it gives you like a great glow, or it just makes your hair really shiny, or whatever. But it's
Yeah.
talking like a normal way that is sort of has that human touch to it. And I think that's what really made them stand out and made them the
Yeah.
success story that they were. Um,
Absolutely. Do you
so
think it
that's
kind
why
of,
Smart Beauty
sorry.
Creative came about. To give you a
Yeah,
long,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's
give you a
brilliant. That's
long
brilliant because I
explanation.
think
Yeah.
it's something that we often overlook. I
Mm.
think because we both do similar things, and in my experience, brands usually come to you and say, I've got this product, I just want some copy to go with it. And when you ask about tone of voice, it's not something that people necessarily think of. They're just like, just, describe the product and just do
Yeah.
what everybody else is doing. But you're right. I think to cut above the noise, you really have to come with a unique angle. And I think of brands like Cult Beauty. I'm not sure how long has Cult Beauty been around? Is it 10 plus years, isn't it?
I think it's about 15 years now.
Yeah. So it
Um,
probably coincides with the emergence of like social media, your Instagram, where
mm.
the tone of voice is very, like you said, it's like your best friend, very personable, chilled and laid back, not as formal. So from what I can see, a lot of the brands that are really nailing it and connecting with their audience kind of adopt that approach. Would you say that's accurate to some degree?
Definitely, but I think to go back to your earlier point, a lot of brands are still prioritizing visuals over copy, I've noticed, and it's
Yeah.
great. Like, obviously, visuals count for so much, and you can tell a beautiful story with your brand visuals. But I feel like if your tone of voice is like lackluster, then it drags down everything else. I
Yeah.
kind of think of it as kind of like like a movie score, like background music. You don't notice it
Mm.
unless it's really bad, and then it really
Yeah.
stands out. Or if it's not that good, but it sort of subtly elevates everything else. So it just
Yeah.
brings all the action together, and that's the kind of the best way I can describe it. Like there's one brand that's just launched, and it's a doctor-led brand, and they've tried to sort of make clinical skincare more fun. And they've got
Mm.
beautiful visuals and this gorgeous website. But I was looking at their copy earlier and just thinking it was just the same bland
Yeah.
like copy that a load of other brands write with. And
Yeah.
that's not selling me that product. If I'm on the product page and thinking, should I buy this moisturizer? Looking at like, a paragraph or like two or three sentences, that's not gonna sell it to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like,
They
I
have
want
to
a
tally up.
story.
Yeah, they have to tally up. If you're going
Exactly.
to be quite innovative with the products and the photography, then
Mm.
the copy has to reflect that too.
Yeah, and there's no
Yeah.
kind of elevator. It doesn't mean that you have to have reams and reams of copy because nobody's got the attention span to read through all that. But it's just how you say it. It
Yeah.
should be fun and interesting and punchy. I mean, the way that you and I write as journalists, it's not just like blah 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 and then this happened. It's
Yeah.
like it's entertaining. You've got to get people to continue reading,
Yeah.
which I think is where a lot of these brands are missing the mark.
Absolutely. So, which brands do you think are currently getting it right? You mentioned Cult Beauty. Are there any,
Mm.
say, beauty or makeup brands that you think, or hair brands that you think are currently nailing it in terms of tone of voice?
Yeah, I mean, one of the other kind of sort of early adopters of this was has to be Lush. I have to give them
Mm,
credit. So I was speaking to Sarah McCartney, founder of 4160 Tuesdays perfume brand, and who also have a really great tone of voice. But she used to be the editor of the Lush Times, and she helped Lush basically create the tone of voice that we're used to today, which is kind of
wow.
quirky, irreverent, kind of fun. And she said that the copywriters would previously be saying, "Oh, well, this gives you the loveliest, shiniest hair," and she said it would sound like L'Oreal, and she's like, "No, we're not L'Oreal. We want to, be like, just talking to, as if you're just talking to somebody sat in front of you. Like, what do you love
Yeah.
about it? What's so great about it?" And just
Yeah.
in a sort of relaxed, informal, conversational style that people are used to if you walked into a shop and were chatting to the assistant. And I think
Yeah.
they were kind of one of the originators of it. I think brands like Glossier, obviously, they've built this
Mm,
community because they have that sort of distinct tone of voice that clicked with millennials. There, it was conversational and approachable. Fenty Beauty, I know you're a big fan of
yeah.
theirs. Great example of inclusivity, like woven into its voice. And also, there's a perfume brand called Vireo that stands out because it's got that kind of spiritual wellness element, but it's
Mm,
also a lot of kind of authoritative fragrance knowledge. So I think there are a few brands, but to be
yeah.
honest with you, we've still got a long way
A
to
long way
go.
to go. And do
Yeah.
you find as well that sometimes it's educating the people that you work for?
Mm,
Because I often find, we are so used to having a very standardized way of writing in beauty journalism. So when you kind of go against the grain and you present that to, I don't know, whoever the client is, sometimes it might be them giving you the pushback and saying, why isn't
yeah,
this more standardized? If you want to maybe interweave a bit of slang in there or, say something fun or quirky, it's being able to convince the client that this is the right way to go to stand out online. Would you say that's the
definitely. Because I
case?
think what I think it is, I think it's a hangover from there being so much marketing fluff and so
Mm,
many like lies being told in the beauty industry, and people are just so sick of all the flowery language and like, oh, this is a
mm,
miracle in a jar, this is magic. We won't tell you how it works, but it's just magic, and it's like seriously.
yeah.
And now I think they've gone too much the other way, where it's like we have to be very serious, we have to be
Yeah.
very scientific. We can't have, we can't mess about now. We've got to
Yeah.
be hard hitting, this is the science, and everything is just, it takes itself so seriously.
Yeah.
Whereas, you can be, I had this issue with a scientific hair care brand that I was working with. Um, And they kept pushing back because I was trying to make the language fun and quirky. And they're like, no, we're a scientific brand. It's like, it can be both. We
It
can
can be
be
both.
scientific,
Yeah.
but it can be fun and it can be like playful. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be one or the other. So it's just that education piece and trying to get people to
Trying to convince
understand
people.
that it doesn't need to be like either serious or it's fluffy and
Yeah.
irrelevant.
It can be in
There's
between. Yeah. Because as you say,
exactly
we have got short attention spans now, and you want to capture, the attention of your audience or the people that you're speaking to. And you're right, we can do both. We
sure.
can be serious and read really science heavy copy, but we also want to stick. We've got so many things vying for our attention online, websites, copy, left, right, and center. So you want to be
Exactly.
able to penetrate that message through to your
There's so
consumer.
much noise. There's
Yeah,
so
there's so
much
much
noise.
noise, exactly.
And I think
Uh,
beauty is a very emotional, sorry to just interrupt, but
yeah,
I think beauty is such a very emotional space, and we connect with beauty products on an emotional level so much more. It's like we're not selling car insurance, we're not selling
yeah,
double glazing, but a lot of beauty brands talk like they are, which is what I
yeah,
find mind-blowing because it's so, it has that emotional sort of pull, like when you buy a beauty product, even
absolutely.
skincare, even a moisturizer. And I think that that's where a lot of brands are kind of missing the mark
Missing
and
out.
leaving money on the table when it comes to how
Absolutely.
they talk about the products.
I always
Yeah.
say if I'm reading your copy and then my mind starts to drift to, oh, I wonder what I should cook for dinner tonight, that
Yeah.
means you're not hitting the mark.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so I thought it'd be quite fun to do a bit of role playing so people can kind of understand the service that you offer. So
Mm.
so I'm a brand owner. I've just launched a brush, a hairbrush. Let's say it's for afro hair. So it's good at detangling, it's fun and playful. So I approach you and I say, Viola, I've got this amazing product that I think is really revolutionary. What are some of the steps that would take place if I'm approaching you to work with you in terms of,
Definitely. Well, what we do, because we know that if you're a startup brand, your budget probably isn't, you don't have a lot of budget to play with, or you're worried about where, where you're allocating different parts of the budget to. So what we do is we offer a smart kind of copy blueprint service where we have like a 90-minute consultancy session where you speak to us and tell us about kind of your vision for the brand, the sort of values that you want the brand to embody, like the story behind the brand, and everything that, the reason why you created it, what sort of sets you alight about it, why are you so passionate about this? Because it's not an easy thing to launch a beauty product in this in this
mm,
space. It's a huge risk. So we get all of that information and then we provide a document which gives all of our kind of tailored recommendations when it comes to your tone of voice, your brand copy, kind of what
mhm,
direction we think you should, what direction would be suitable for your particular brand or product. And
mhm,
then that would then turn into, if you're sort of happy with that and wanted to proceed, book one of our sort of more extensive packages, then it would be a 1 or 2 day workshop where we basically put the client at the center of the creative process. So rather than the traditional model where, say, you book us, say, okay, so this project will be like weeks and weeks and weeks. It'll be back and forth emails and Zoom calls. It's basically 1 or 2 days that you book of your time where we basically go through everything, the brand story, the tone of voice,
mm,
email copy, blog posts, anything that we can complete in that allotted time.
mhm,
And after that, you've left with all of the assets you need to then launch your brand and launch your website. So you've got everything there. And because we're
yeah,
journalists, we're used to working at really tight deadlines and turning
mhm,
around copy that's award-winning and 5-star in a short amount of time. And
yeah,
actually, you don't need a lot of time in order to create sort of long, sort of brand story and to find that core verbal identity for your brand. All you
yeah,
need is to have, everyone in the room together kind of discussing it and brainstorming ideas. And I find that, you get so much done in a lot shorter space of time
mhm,
rather than dragging a project out where there's a diminishing rate of returns because there's kind of, can you do this revision? And you're chasing the client up. As a client, you're very busy. You don't have time to have endless Zoom calls and emails. And
yeah,
but with the workshop model, you're there with the client and you're kind of going, you're creating it together. So the client is part of the process. They're not
Yeah.
external to it.
I love that. And that's important as well, isn't there? Because
Yeah.
they might have certain elements that they would like to integrate into the copy or the tone of voice. So it's important that it's a
Yeah.
collaborative process, isn't it? Rather than
Yeah. And also
here's
it's
my
your brand. It's
product.
not our
You,
brand. That's
yeah,
why we want to make it
yeah,
sort of as close to what you'd envisioned as
yeah,
possible, rather than us going off and being creative and then giving you sort of like homework of what we think your brand is. Um,
absolutely. Awesome. But is there the option then? So I've kind of walked away. I've got my brand story, my assets, my tone of voice is nailed down. Is there the option then to just continue working with you on a retainer
yes,
basis?
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But getting
Hmm.
those sort of core strategic elements right is so crucial. And then everything
Yeah.
kind of flows from that. So that's why we implement the workshop method for those core key elements,
Yeah.
just to make sure that, because, if I'm talking about a client's brand and this is the story of their brand, I want the client in front of me. I want to
Yeah.
make sure that they are happy with everything that I'm saying and that I can explain it to them properly
Yeah.
rather than just sending them some documents in an email and saying and giving them homework to go off and have a look
Yeah.
at.
And then all the
Um,
to-ing and fro-ing as well between emails
exactly.
and yeah.
It
Sometimes it
works for
is
the
just
client
best if you're
better.
both in the same space and you can just bash it out and get it out the way as soon as possible.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um,
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so something that we often hear is beauty brands have to have a consistent tone of voice across all platforms. So whether that be social media, the newsletters, LinkedIn profiles, why would you say this is really important for you to implement as a brand owner?
I think if you want to build a community and have customers trust you, I think consistency builds that trust and it builds that recognition. It
Hmm.
helps build that brand awareness. So if like your Instagram sounds like casual and friendly, but your
Mm,
website feels formal and distant, it can create confusion and
yeah.
customers can feel very alienated. And I find that's a lot of the time is the case. Like some beauty brands, the social media team sort of go off on a tangent and are as fun and playful as they can, having
Mm,
like, great fun. But then you go onto the website and it's a completely different story. So I think having a unified tone of voice kind of reassures audiences that as a brand, you know who you are and what you stand for.
yeah.
Especially if you're a brand that claims to have, stand for X, Y, and Z and sort of takes very strong kind of has a very strong mission and saying, well, this is what we want to do, this is what we believe in. I
Hmm.
think having a consistent tone of voice is a way of reassuring your customers that, you are who you say you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love as well, is brands that, as you said, are consistent. You know exactly what you're going to get on the tin. Not to say that you shouldn't
Sure.
change or evolve and move with the times, but yeah, they should all be unified.
Mm,
I like, yeah, and
definitely.
that's everything as well. That's imagery, product. I don't know. I like consistency. I like to know what I'm going to get when it comes
Same,
to brand.
same. And it's,
Yeah.
and kind of, if you're reading an advert for, like Lush, for example, that that's Lush. If you're
Yeah.
reading like, product description for like, Estee Lauder's Advanced Night Repair, that's Estee
Yeah.
Lauder. It's that kind of immediate recognition,
Yeah.
that
That'd
kind of
be
reassurance.
quite a good exercise, actually, is to remove the name of the product
Mm,
from the top
yeah,
and
that would
just
be a good
say,
one.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So, how can beauty brands ensure that their tone of voice remains culturally sensitive and avoid perpetuating like stereotypes or using outdated language and terms?
I think the main thing is to hire people, and whether that's consultants, freelancers, or have people on your team that represent the communities that you're talking to. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir here because
Yeah.
you agree with me on this, that
Yeah.
and we spoke about this when you were on my podcast last, but I think, having people making the decisions and signing off
Yeah.
that represent who you're trying to include, if you're trying to be inclusive, I think is key,
Yeah.
in making sure that, you don't have any blind spots and that you're not being insensitive or inadvertently offending anyone. So think that, you can accidentally make sort of tokenistic gestures or cliches.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, you're showing that you're putting your money where your mouth is and walking the walk, and you're celebrating diversity, not just kind of paying lip service to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how can brands stay informed and evolve about cultural norms? Because sometimes things are so ever-changing and so fast-paced,
Mm,
aren't they? And what may be acceptable one day may not be the other. Is it again just
definitely.
ensuring that your team is as diverse as possible or
And listening to your audience. I think
mm,
whether that's through social media, focus groups, or getting
mm,
customer feedback, I
it's
think,
true.
having that sort of two-way conversation with your audience and having them kind of at the, as part of the process of your content is where your content, where new product development is concerned,
Yeah.
and then keeping up with what's happening in the industry. So following conversations
Mm,
and being open to change, I think ensures that you kind of stay relevant and on
yeah.
top of things.
I agree wholeheartedly. Um, and then the final question is, what are the top three beauty brands that you're feeling right now? And this can be both tone of voice or just in general.
So I really love this French girl brand. It's Violette FR.
Okay.
It's by a French makeup artist, and it's the products are just so beautiful. Like she has these kind of lipsticks, they're called bisou balms that are just sort of stunning. And also, tone of voice, just as an aside, it has this kind of it is that kind of French girl chic tone of voice, but it's kind of playful about it. It's got a bit tongue in
Okay.
cheek. Because obviously, as you know, a lot of beauty brands play on the like French girl, like Parisian skipping down the Champs-Elysees sort of
Yeah.
cliche. But I feel like this one gets the balance quite right. It gets the balance
Okay.
right. So it's sort of it's cute and it's playful and it sort of leans on the heritage of it being a Parisian brand, but it doesn't go too, it doesn't go
Awesome.
OTT.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a brand called Argentum that I've loved for years. And it has this sort of really gorgeous, kind of evocative, magical tone. And it focuses on silver as an ingredient and sort of
Okay.
hence the name and just
This is
how
skincare, makeup or
it's
skin.
skincare and fragrance.
Okay.
And the packaging is just, oh, it's just stunning and the storytelling behind it. And
Oh, wow.
it's really, yeah, it's a really lovely one. Um, and also, I'd say they've been around for a while, but the Inky List, I really love what
Mm.
they've done about how they're educating their audience and just making skincare education accessible for everyone and just making it so engaging and fun. I think that's what I kind of want to help brands with. Just, you can educate people and be scientific, but you can also be playful. You
Yeah.
can have fun with it. It doesn't need to be, GCSE biology or chemistry. It can be fun and exciting and get, uh, yeah,
Yeah.
irreverent, all of that stuff. Because, like I say, beauty is
Amazing.
very emotional. It's a very emotive topic, and I
It
think that
really
brands
is.
really lean
Yeah.
into that rather than
Yeah.
shy away from it.
Amazing. Viola, you really know your stuff, I should say. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you.
I learn every time I speak to you, I learn something new.
Oh,
So
that's
thank
so
you so
lovely.
much for
Thank you so much.
sharing. Before we leave, can you let us know where people can find you if they wanted to hire you for your brand copywriting services? Can you let us know
Yeah,
the best
sure.
platforms?
So you can drop us an email, hello@smartbeautycreative.com, or
Hmm.
visit our website, smartbeautycreative.com. And you can also find us on Instagram at smartbeautycreative. So, yeah,
Amazing.
thank you so much, Keisha. Lovely
Thank you
speaking with
so
you as well.
much for your time and for joining us. And yeah, hopefully we can work again together real soon because I enjoy working with you. It's so fun.
Same. That would be
Yeah.
lovely.
Oh, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Keisha. I really appreciate you having me on, and you too. And
Yeah.
yeah, sending you all the good positive vibes for this year.
Yes, please.
May we both be booked and busy.
Booked and busy for 2025, indeed.
For
You
sure.
take
Oh,
care.
you too. Enjoy the
All
rest
right.
of your day.
You too. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.